Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So I know it's been a while since I did a book review, but and also I did say that I was going to do this particular book during the month of Halloween because it is a horror book, horror story, and it just makes sense to do in Halloween. But I couldn't because I had my grandparents staying with me during that week, and my granddad had to go into hospital for a few days, and my left with me just to look after. He's okay now, he's out of hospital. He came out on Friday, I think, and then he went back on Monday. So he's fine, he was being treated for cancer. He's fine now, it's just, he's back home, he just has to take it easy and take a lot of meds. And also, my significant other's birthday was during that month as well, so I was caught up in that. But now I'm back with doing probably more consistent videos, probably weekly videos, maybe, if I can, depending on my availability. So today I'm gonna do, the book in question is a horror story. As I said, that's why I wanted to wait till Halloween, but I couldn't. So it is probably well known, though you can read horror books, you can watch horror films, you can play horror games, any time of the year. Really doesn't have to stick with Halloween, that doesn't have to stick with that stereotypical Halloween vibe, Halloween month, which I try not to do. And also I'm not the one like to go out and go all out with Halloween, though it is tradition. So speaking of that, just a quick little thing of what I did in Halloween. For the first time in my adult sort of hood, I went out to Chawton House where Jane Austen used to live, and me and Mum did. We got dressed up. Well, I didn't really. I just went out in my black garb, really. More sophisticated way that adults dress, didn't have to dress up in costumes. So we went out to Jane Austen's old house in the night, started around 8 o'clock, I think. So, no, 7:30, and then about 2 hours. We had this tour around the house with these two Victorian dressed up girls who toured. There's around about 20 others who went around just a tour around the house telling ghostly stories of the Victorian period, like Northanger Abbey, bit of Jane Eyre. So yeah, that was quite fun actually. I quite enjoyed it. I heard an owl, a tawny owl, whilst walking out of it. I didn't record anything, but it was just a little something. Anyway, on with the book review. So the book in question I'm going to review is The Queen of the Damned by Anne Rice. So it's been a while since I read an Anne Rice book, but I read this in the summer, and I particularly wanted to do this review, particularly for Halloween. But since Halloween is over, I can't do that, so I'm doing it today. Yeah, I might not, it probably won't be a spoiler review, but it will be a review nonetheless. So I have two copies. This was the first copy that I have. They have many editions, Anne Rice has many editions. So I got this one, which has, small writing with lovely illustrations, if I can show you. Illustrations in here, and throughout the book has, in each chapter highlighting different illustrations. But the book that I started reading from is this one, because this is the most recent edition, but this matches the Vampire Lestat version that I have, so I decided to read from this one because, I read from the Lestat one. This is quite ashamed really. I hadn't read this book. I've watched the film, but I haven't read the book. So this book came out in 1988, though the Vampire Chronicles started in the late 70s. Watching the film first gave me a different impression on the book, though it gave me a new perspective on it. When you watch something when you watch the movie first, then the book, you can't help but think of the movie. So, of course, you can't fit everything in the 2 hours. But, yeah. So I think you already know the story, but I'm going to say it anyway. So the book centres around Lestat awakening the Queen Akasha, who's the Queen of the Vampires. And it goes, so the Queen wreaks havoc towards the end of the book. It only happens towards the end of the book, towards like the last segment, which is disappointing. So like for all Anne Rice books, she is one of my favourite authors, but she does tend to ramble, which I don't mind, but, it doesn't really get to the crux of the story until, like, the end of it. So each chapter starts with different characters. So we have Daniel Talbot, we have Lestat, we have like different vampires like Cayman and Armand, Benjamin, Maret, and Jessie, who is a part of the Talmasca. She's a human, but she gets turned into the vampire by Lestat. But towards the end of the book, which is different from the movie, is that David does get turned into the vampire. But at the end, if I remember, so Jesse is not with Vampire Lestat at the end of the book. Lestat is on his own, so he actually turns David. Jesse does get turned into a vampire towards the end. So the book goes into the origins of Jessie and how her mother Miriam left her. So she's adopted by Maret, and then so I can pronounce these, but in my head, I can pronounce these in my head, but not speaking. So Mal is, linked with Mariette, but they're not mentioned in the movie. These things are not mentioned in the movie. And as well as Enkiel and Akasha, the twins. At the end of the story, the Queen gets defeated. Lestat gets enthralled in Akasha's ways. It's like hypnotism, but eventually he snaps out of it and he turns Jesse. So in a way I do actually get mixed up with the movie version and the book, which isn't really good. We also get to know of, what's his name? Yes, that's his name. So we get to know of Marius, who turned Lestat in the first place. Louis is not mentioned in it. Well, actually, yes, he is mentioned in this book. Louis is mentioned. So all these vampires collate all together to destroy the Queen, as stated in the movie, but the movie doesn't give away all the vampires, such as Pandora, who's a witch, as well as Merrick, Eric, Gabrielle, Santorio, Armand, all these different vampires that, I didn't really know of until this book. So at the start of the book, the first chapter, we get to know of Baby Jenks, who's part of the gang, almost like the rock stars in the movie, where they're part of the little clan who's a big fan of who actually knew of Lestat, who became like a rock star in this movie. Which is the reason why I quite liked it, because it was like the sense of a modern era for vampires. And eventually the Baby Jenks, it's not a big chapter, Baby Jenks gets killed. So this gang is called the Fang Gang. She gets turned by Marius, and then she quickly, even though Marius turned her, you would expect her to, since he turned Lestat, you expect her to like him, but she grows a distaste for him. We also be introduced, but you also we know of Azim, who's an Egyptian. And I have a little book here just in case you're wondering what I'm doing, because I write notes like as I read almost, so because I know I'm like doing a book review, so I do pros and cons at the end. So like the book, at the end of the book really all this happens where Lestat plays in a concert in San Francisco, but he also plays the lead. And also, like the movie, the Queen Akasha bombards or gate crashes the concert and battles everyone. So as I said, we get to know of Jessie's origins and how she came to be a part of the Talamasca. And so we know that in the movie, she's the niece of Mariette, but she's in fact the adopted daughter, I think. And then Jessie has this special power where she gets to, hear spirits and the secret language of the dead, which makes her special. I think that's what makes Lestat turn her at the end of the day. And then Enkil, who is the king, and Akasha is the queen. Eventually Akasha kills Enkil so she can suck him dry, so she can take his personality and strength just for a while, because she was selfish and she just wanted to be the queen of them all. So like the queen of destruction and wrath. So as I said, like the last quarter, we only get the action until like the last quarter of the book. And so like all the vampires argue, Louis of course argues with Lestat, the Brat Prince. For some reason Akasha was like a feminist, where she wanted to destroy all the male vampires to save Lestat, because again she had this selfish attitude where she wanted to keep Lestat for her own, and no other male vampires would be alive, just Lestat. And she promised to him that Lestat would be feared if all the males perished. So Akasha put like a spell on him, and she relied on the witches to decipher. So she relied on the witches to decipher who they were. So I think she got under their spell a bit. And all these chapters are in like the point of view of Lestat, the point of view of Daniel and things like that, even though like Daniel Malloy is in the Interview with the Vampire. He has the book of Lestat's like biography, and also Into Vampire, his book, so his account of his like old life, including turning Louis and Claudia, and the tragicness of Claudia and Louis. Though we know in was it not Merrick? Yeah, the Merrick, where she summons the ghost of Claudia, so that tragicness of it. So end of novel, Lestat finally returns home to Lestat's palace in New Orleans, where Anne Rice is from, to see all the vampires. And the final scene, we see David in David Talbot's office, just like the movie. And Lestat and Louis visit David, who gets turned into a vampire by him. But Jessie is not with them, just like the movie. So, a lot of notes here. So, and also I'm missing Laurent, who's Lestat's old friend, one of the vampires who gets to destroy Akasha, as well as Gabrielle, Lestat's mom. There's like side characters, so we get introduced, with a lot of other vampires which we didn't even know about. Some we do, such as Marius, Gabrielle, Pandora, Merrick, Armand. So with all Anne Rice books, she takes the time into building atmosphere, and I love her style of writing. That's why she's one of my favourite authors, because she just takes the time into writing and, you know, building atmosphere and all these lovely delicate words she uses, and she doesn't rush into getting her point across, but, you know, rather she takes it in a stride into building the story, even though she does take her time doing it, does take her time building up to the actual events. And most importantly, she makes her vampires the most believable, and I do sort of believe that they're still around. I know it's weird, but it's sort of true for me. Lestat's probably my favourite, like with anybody else really. Tom Cruise in Into the Vampire portrays him well, like being a brat and being quite humorous, quite a bitch towards Louis as well. So I know they're making a TV series in Honolulu, in Hulu, whatever it is, just like, you know, Lost, the same company as Lost were. I might do a reaction video so it's only going to be in America, so it's not going to reach the UK until like a couple of years after or something. Just like with games and just like with movies, we don't really get them until a couple of months after, 6 months or whatever. So yeah, I might do a reaction video on that. But I'm not sure, I'm just quite sceptical because I've no idea how good it's going to be, how testamental it's going to be towards getting, because Into the Vampire was such a good movie. You know, Brad Pitt as Louis, Claudia with the young Kirsten Dunst, and Antonio Banderas as Armand, and Tom Cruise as Lestat, because, you know, I don't know how well it's gonna come across, what testament is going to be to it. But compared to the movie, The Queen of the Damned is a very good book. It is obviously longer than the movie, just like books are. That's why I love reading, because in some instances I do watch the movies than the books, just like I did with Queen of the Damned. So also in the book, Jesse's dad is mentioned at the start, where we are first introduced to Jessie. Her dad is mentioned, but her dad died, so she recounts it in her little memoirs. She's an explorer before she gets into Talamasca, who Mariette and her mum persuades her to join. So she starts writing the book on the twins, aka Akasha and Enkil. So the movie obviously gives a visual perspective to the book, which complements it, which I do like, because obviously in your head, when you read a book, you can just have it in your head what these characters are like, but in the movie, it does spoil it in a way, because we already know what they look like in the movie, and then in the book, you have no choice but to picture them, which sucks. Pardon the pun. But yeah, I'm always on the fence with these things, if I prefer the movie or because the movie and the book both have redeeming factors, positive and negatives, pros and cons. So the reason why I like the Anne Rice's vampires is not only what they seem believable, but also because they remind me of, they're very sinister, but they remind me of black metal in Sweden. God, that used to freak me out so much. I used to get this magazine, Kerrang magazine, had these particular articles. I think I threw them away now. But I started writing a story inspired by the black metalists, with Varg Vikernes and not Anonymous, and the whole scariness of it, and how it came to be, and how we killed Anonymous, and what I'm saying is what I like about it is how dark they are and how the vampires remind me of them, even though these are actually real people. But yeah, I don't know if I gave much spoilers away in this book, but I did enjoy it. It's a slow burn, but as I said, at last quarter you only get to the real action until towards the end. And it's like at the start you only get introduction to these characters, a lot of characters in this book. And also introduction to these little excerpts, little poems by Anne Rice's late husband. Get a little prologue at the start as well. A little chapter section in here as well. So, yeah, that's my little review. I don't know how well I did, but this is going to be my last book review, that is, until I go through my book cupboard tour, which I will do at some point, maybe next year now, because the lighting in my room is not that good, because it's becoming winter now, November. So I have a load of books, so I can show you all the books I have, and go not only for me going into a nostalgic trip, but for you guys to show you what books would you want for me to review. So at the moment I'm reading it's my second reading through by this teenage author who did like Dinner with a Vampire. It's called by Abigail Gibbs, The Dark Heroine. This is my second reading. I'm almost finished. This is my second read through. The first thing I heard about her was when she was on the BBC News, and at the start she was this like fanfic site where you can she wrote stories, and I actually prefer this to Twilight in a way, because of course it actually includes swear words in it, she does, and it's got some nice twists. So if you'd like me to do a review of this book, then do it now. Tell me now, because I'm almost finished. Even though it's my second read through, I have some new things that came to light to me. I think I do actually probably prefer this to Twilight, as I said. So again, that's my book, I don't really say a review, but my little thoughts on the book comparisons to the movie. So if you'd like me to review any more books that I will be showing in my book cupboard sometime in my next videos, then give it a shout out if you want me to do any more book reviews. So also comment down below what you thought of the book, and also what you thought of the movie, and we can have a little discussion. It'd be quite nice. I like to have discussions. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.